Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, among other lawmakers, introduced this bill that did end up passing in the House of Representatives. It's going to be DOA in the Senate because you have to pass the 60-vote threshold. And I think it was also Velasquez who kind of pushed this forward with AOC. It's a good bill because it's long overdue that Puerto Rico has an opportunity to make a determination about its future. The legislation, if it were to go into effect, and as I mentioned, it's not going to pass the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, but it would allow for Puerto Rico to have a referendum where they could decide statehood, independence, or the other option is independence with free association. It passed in the House, but there were Republicans as debating it who made shockingly racist and ignorant arguments. What else do you expect in the process of debating this legislation? Here is California Republican Tom McClintock.
Only about 20% of the population is fluent in English, which means that we would be admitting a state whose vast majority is isolated from the national political debate that is central to our democracy. Nor will statehood solve Puerto Rico's economic problems. Residents would now have to pay all federal income taxes from which they're currently exempt. The GAO estimates that would cost Puerto Rico 70% of its existing manufacturing base. And there's not even a CBO estimate of the cost to American taxpayers of admitting a chronically mismanaged and utterly bankrupt state government. The economy of Puerto Rico is expected to underperform the national economy, which is itself a disaster. For American taxpayers, it would mean a new state that has the lowest per capita income in the country and the largest per capita debt. Its labor participation rate is 40% compared to 62% nationally. 43% of the population lives below the poverty line. Its academic performance would be the worst in the nation. So how does it benefit America to admit a state that will be the most indebted, uneducated, poorest, and least employed state in the nation?
Yeah, that's a shithole country argument. And the reason that Puerto Rico is in that state is because of crippling austerity measures by the United States that are a way to discipline them so they don't get a little bit too rowdy and question the colonialism that we have imposed on them.
Oh yeah, look at all these outcomes from this colonial relationship that we've imposed on this place, and that's the reason that we can't change it.
And that's the reason that actually they are inherently flawed and unworthy of being a part of our wonderful, benevolent colonial empire.
Oh, and sorry, so I think he said, how does it benefit America to admit a state that would be the most indebted, uneducated, poorest, and least employed state in the nation? He's not talking about Mississippi.
No.
That's a state completely controlled by white Republicans who have subjugated their black residents to austerity measures and terrible social policies that have made them one of the most poor, most uneducated, poorest, most with one of the worst qualities of life in the entire country. And yet Puerto Rico would be the problem?
Well, that's the thing this is Republican 101, right? Which is impose austerity measures on a population, particularly if that population is non-white, and those measures are reflected in those outcomes, and then blame them for those outcomes being the case, and saying, well, it's just because they don't want to help themselves. It would not benefit us to have them as a part of our club.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the best case scenario would be like some sort of organization of Caribbean states that PR can join as a basically counterbalance to American power. But yeah, as opposed to just maintaining where we are in the sort of relationship that's led to exactly the sort of problems that he's quoting there. It would be better if they were a state. And
well, they can determine that. If this bill goes into effect, there can be a referendum in Puerto Rico, and the population can make a decision about what they would want. I would want that process to be very buttoned up, and I don't know how you can get those assurances.
Yeah.
But
also, their debt should be forgiven. Like, whenever somebody says, like, oh, look at this small country with a whole bunch of debt, it's like, oh, yeah, we should write that off. We should go to the banks and just cross that out.
they were just victimized by a natural disaster, and there's still this arcane law in place that does not allow foreign shipping containers to go to Puerto Rico without the United States' approval. And that caused a massive delay in supplies getting there to benefit Puerto Ricans who were reeling from this natural disaster. We have a chokehold over whatever happens there. And we've also created a structure there within their government where there's a bit of a political machine that has some issues with it because they have a relationship with moneyed interests sometimes in the United States. And so democracy, a referendum is like is a very good solution. And I'm happy that Ocasio-Cortez and Velasquez put it to the forefront. But, right now they're also being like, Puerto Rico is ground zero for those crypto colonizers that are going there and using Puerto Rico.
Was SBF in Puerto Rico?
He was in the Bahamas.
Oh, right.
But there are other cryptocurrencies that are trying to.
No, Miki covered that.
She did, yeah. And it is a growing problem there.